many parents we're so thrilled to have so many parents of first years who are here joining us today to get the inside scoop on summer advising and course selection and anything else that comes up in conversation here. My name is Sarah Maslin-Fothery. I'm Director of Parent Relations at Dickinson. And I'm just thrilled, again, that you're all here and that you took some time in the middle of your day to connect with us to learn more about this wonderful and supportive community that your family is joining. We're so thrilled that you've chosen Dickinson. And as I was saying a couple of minutes ago, we just cannot wait to welcome you and your students to campus in August and to have a full community that is just thriving in Carlisle once again. The program that you're here today for is going to be centered around, well, actually, it's the first of 8 programs that we're hosting this summer with the intention of sharing as much information with you as possible leading up to the start of your students' experience. So I hope that you'll join us for a couple of other programs, but I'm so glad you're here for the launch of this summer series for families. And we want to provide you with as much information as possible so that when you move your student in August, it's a relaxing and positive experience full of memories that aren't, centered around feeling frazzled with a lot of unanswered questions that you might have on your mind that day. And our presentation today is going to focus on Dickinson's approach to summer advising and the support that your student will receive as they choose their courses this summer, as well as the support that they'll continue to receive throughout their 4 years at Dickinson. As I said before, a couple of housekeeping items. We've begun recording this program, so we'll be able to share it with you afterwards, and you can share it with, even with your student or with anybody else in your family who you think would benefit from the content. And also continue, as I said, to please use the Q&A feature, and we'll do our best to respond to your questions through our presentation. But if you have any lingering questions at the end of our discussion, you can contact me at parents@dickinson.edu, and I'll make sure that any follow-up takes place. So now I want to take just a quick minute to introduce or have our other panelists and presenters unmute themselves for a second to say hello. They will be speaking throughout our program at other times, but I thought it'd be good for you to hear from them. So with us, we have Sarah Kirsch. Would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Hi all, I'm Sarah Kirsch. I'm an assistant professor in the Department of English, and I've done summer advising for many years now, taught a number of first-year seminars, and I'll be talking a little bit about what the advisor-advisee relationship is like. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Debbie Swarner.
Greetings and welcome from Carlisle. I'm Debbie Swarner. I work in the Center for Advising Internships and Lifelong Career Development. I'm part of the advising team, which is why I'm here today, but also as a part of that role, I work with the PreHealth program at Dickinson. And I know there are many parents here who are students of future healthcare providers. I'm happy to talk to you a little bit about our PreHealth program today. And also just to give you some insights that'll be useful during the new student advising time.
Thanks, Debbie. Laura Kelco.
Laura Kelco. I'm a 2001 graduate of Dickinson College. So I'd love to, welcome you to this wonderful community. Just like Debbie, I am a member of the staff of the Center for Advising Internships and Lifelong Career Development, and also work with the advising team. I'm also the PreLaw Advisor for the college. So welcome, and I look forward to answering any questions that you might have.
Thanks, Laura. Andrew and Lori Flame.
Hi, good afternoon. Andrew and Lori Flame. We are parents of a Dickinson student, a rising senior, Rachel, who's a science major. And she's done a whole bunch of stuff. And not that long ago, we were where you were. And our only connection to Dickinson is Rachel. So we've become involved in the college separate and apart from her during her time here. So we're here to help give a parent's perspective whenever needed.
Thank you so much. Tara Fischer.
Hello, everybody. My name is Tara Fischer. I am the Dean Director of Academic Advising at Dickinson, and it's my great pleasure today to be able to provide a bit of an overall framing. So we're going to go kind of big picture about your students' upcoming Dickinson educational experience, but then we're going to get into some pretty nitty-gritty details, which I hope will be helpful as you encourage. And I was joking around before this session. I'm so excited that academic advising is this, interesting and important, and we feel incredibly grateful to be able to partner with you in supporting your student through this transition. So, Sarah, any other kind of broad things you want to cover? You want me to just jump right in?
No, I think we're pretty good. We also have Sam Kramer here under the name of Dickinson College. She's here in case I need it. Again, thanks everybody for joining us. Thanks to all of our panelists. And Tara, I think we're ready to get started. So I can share my screen and pull up your presentation then.
Well, thank you. And you can go right on to slide 2, please.
Okay, 1 second.
So while she's pulling that up, I'll just kind of get started. I think I can speak for all of our new student advising team when I say that some of the most meaningful work that we get to do at Dickinson is really working with incoming students. It's that crazy mix of excitement and in some cases a little bit of hesitation that your student is, or I don't know, maybe soon experiencing. And that's exactly the motivation for the model of advising and student support that we have here. Members of our new student advising team can also attest to the fact that the energy of working with your student and with you as a partner and support person is also really energizing. Give me just one moment here. And so, yeah, Sarah, could you go on to slide 2, please?
Yep, sorry.
All good, all good. With you as a partner and support, we know that this transition can be made very smoothly. My job, and really the job of our entire new student advising team, is to help make that transition both into and then through college as smooth, and I'll go so far as to say confidence building as possible. We know that college can be complicated. We know that career choices can be complicated. But here at Dickinson, we have really made huge strides and intentional strides to make those processes, which sometimes can feel a bit maybe overwhelming, to break them into small, doable steps that are really rooted in the social process of connection. So you can see a couple of goals on this screen for today and kind of takeaways, but really my main goal is to introduce you to the systems, structures, and even, as you saw, some of the people that are going to be a part of your students' journey at Dickinson, and then to help you understand how you can help support them in this experience. Next slide, please. So at the Center for Advising Internships and Lifelong Career Development, which 3 of us who are on this panel work in, we've really fully integrated our academic advising and career development process. Our overall mission in the center is to help students define and pursue their authentic interest inside and outside the classroom, on campus, and far beyond these limestone walls, and before and after they graduate. We work to help students identify, confirm, and then pursue their authentic interest, which we believe that term authentic interest lies at the sweet spot intersection of where their personality, skills, values, and priorities intersect. Next slide, please. So our mission sounded pretty simple, right? Help students identify, confirm, and then pursue their authentic interest. But under the surface, I think there's some really complex issues to think through, not least what's the relationship between a Dickinson education in the liberal arts and sciences and a student's future career. From decades of experience, our advising and career development staff know that students' programs of study don't determine their future career options. We know that Dickinson grads can and do launch into almost any field from almost any major, but that said, we take academic decisions very seriously, including really from a career perspective. We know that's on many students' minds, and we know it's on many of your minds. And so we think that working to support that and to help students begin to really explore that is really key to taking advantage of the entire Dickinson experience. So rather than telling a student what they can do with a particular major, we ask questions. What topics spark your curiosity? What kind of problem-solving strategies do you find most satisfying? What kinds of evidence do you typically find most compelling? And this process is really going to start with the new student advising experience, which, as you probably know, is going to take place between July 10th and 16th. So it starts really just over a little bit over a week from now. Students during that time are going to have an in-depth, highly customized conversation about their current hopes, dreams, and aspirations with a member of our new student advising team. No matter where your student is, and we'll talk about this a little bit later, but no matter where your student is in terms of what they think their academic path might be and really where they are from an academic decision-making point, I want to affirm that they are in just the right place at this time. We're going to be asking questions, lots and lots of questions, to help them begin to answer what we feel are the foundational questions that exist when really embarking on any college experience. What do I want to study and why? What do I think I want to do after I graduate and why? And then how do those questions relate to each other and why? We also want this to be a fun, really enjoyable experience for them. I know that I'm a Dickinson graduate and I had an amazing time exploring and seeing connections between things that I just never would have even imagined that I could have, at 17 years old, experienced. Just as really our new student advising team is working with each incoming new student before they arrive on campus, we're also guiding hundreds of seniors to successful launch every spring. So in those rich semesters that lie between those two pretty significant events, our knowledge of Dickinson's academic programs, our campus, and the wider world enable us to, we feel very confidently, guide students to opportunities that both enrich their college experience and help them prepare for really whatever lies ahead. We suggest co-curricular opportunities. We talk about internships and employment options, and we identify elective courses to discuss with their academic advisors. I like to think of our new student advising team and then more broadly our Center for Advising Internships and Lifelong Career Development as experts in helping students connect the dots. Next slide, please. Okay, so big picture, what does this look like? For those of you that I've had the chance to present to in the past, this is going to look familiar. And it's going to become even more familiar to your student over the next 4 years. So take a look at this. This is our advising and career development model, which is again really centered on helping students identify and pursue those authentic interests. So you see it, assess, explore, experience, launch. Assess, explore, experience, launch. You'll note that reflect and decide is at the core of this model. And we really think that is absolutely a key component of academic and career development. We also teach students that this is an ongoing and possibly never-ending process, right, in terms of assessing, exploring, experiencing, launching. Whether your student is just like they are right now, choosing courses for the fall 2021 semester, choosing a major, choosing an internship, thinking about their first job, or even as an alum, thinking about changing jobs or careers. This process of planning one's next move really does involve the same foundational skills. What do you want to do next? Why do you want to do it? What relevant skills and experiences do you already have? And then really, what additional preparation do you need and who can you enlist to help? So that's why we do this the way that we do. Is we really focus on teaching advising and career development as a process so that our goal can extend far beyond a student's initial launch. As you know, the world is getting way more complicated and complex day by day, and really the pace of change appears to only be accelerating. I have seen some articles estimate that your students, today's students, will switch jobs or careers possibly more than a dozen times. Many will hold positions that they don't yet really even know exist or that we've never fathomed, right? Several years ago, who knew what a contact tracer was, right? We want your students to be well equipped to navigate future opportunities with confidence and really agility. Next slide, please. So through a robust slate of individual and group programming options, lots of intentional systems and communications, we feel and we can confidently assert that we equip students with tools and skills that they need to really focus their exploration and to continue to gain confidence in their decision-making capabilities. One of the ways that we do this is by providing really clear step-by-step paths for students that really meet them where they are individually, and that break up both the advising and career development processes into clear and manageable goals. Next slide, please. I apologize, lots of sirens going on behind me right now, but so academic and career development isn't quite as complicated as physics or metaphysics, but it is complicated enough that it can be hard to know where to start, especially if you're 17, 18 years old, right? And this is brand new. There even may be some students who are stepping foot on US soil for the very first time, right? Or are the first in their family to attend college. Our approach to academic and career exploration is really geared towards providing pragmatic, accessible, and we think fun opportunities for students to reflect. And this is where I get to frame that experience a little bit more for you. Slide 8, please. So just as a quick foundation, there are many systems and supports that are put into place at Dickinson to, in fact, support your student. There are academic advisors who I work with very closely, and those faculty members help students navigate the Dickinson curriculum and explore areas academically. Those academic advisors are members of the faculty who work really closely with students during their time at Dickinson. Their job really is to help students understand and navigate Dickinson's rich liberal arts curriculum, and then begin to make connections and dive deeply into those authentic interests. And you'll hear a little bit more about at least how one very accomplished advisor and very seasoned advisor does that in just a bit. Each incoming student will also have what we call a launch tech. That is a member of the staff from the center Center for Advising, Internships, and Lifelong Career Development that Laura, Debbie, and I work in. I won't go into a lot about that right now, but if anyone's interested, I can share more info about that during the Q&A time. The launch tech is, I would say, case manager of sorts. That person provides a structure to the career development process for students and kind of check-ins along the way. It's a new program that was just launched within the last couple of years, but we've seen good success with that so far, especially since that relationship is important, but really is designed to help support the student in their career development process, with the role of the academic advisor really being of utmost importance. That advisor relationship is something that I encourage students to really, really utilize. Faculty are excited to work with your students and excited to help them begin to connect the dots. There's nothing that really is more energizing than seeing light bulbs go off, and I think all my colleagues would say the same thing. So that's a bit about the academic advisor role, and then a bit about the launch tech role. We also have what we call a care team at Dickinson, which again, I won't go into much about this, but I just wanted you to understand the three kind of main areas of student support: academic advisor, launch tech, and then the care team. So care team are really supporting students of concern. It's a small core group of folks who work with situations that are urgent or more emergent. And we work to support students who are encountering challenges of, well, really any sort. Again, I'm not going to spend much time talking about that, but I did just want to introduce those roles because they will be important throughout the time that your student is at Dickinson, and it's good for you to know what exists in terms of where to kind of connect them. Next slide, please. You saw listed on there were a lot of other resources on campus that are there to provide academic support as well. Your student will be well supported. Really, our goal, and hopefully your goal, is to continue to help them push towards the resources that are available to support them. We can talk a bit more about that later too, if anyone has an interest. Okay, so academic overview and what's next. I'm going to go into a lot more specifics now, so hang with me. Big picture. Students need 32 credits to graduate from Dickinson College, 32 credits. At Dickinson, one class equals 1 credit. We keep things very simple. I know that is very different from some colleges and universities that have 3 or 4 credit systems. But one class equals 1 credit. That is an average of 4 classes each semester that they're at Dickinson. There are, of those 32 total credits, it's typically about an even third split between general distribution requirements, so things like the core liberal arts requirements. I won't list all of those, but there are a handful within everything from humanities to laboratory science, global diversity, sustainability, those core classes that we, or the core, I guess I should say, areas of classes that we require students really achieve while they're at Dickinson. So for one particular class, let's say the humanities requirement, there may be 200 classes that could really fulfill that particular requirement. So there's a lot of choice within it, but about a third of those total 32 credits are for the core kind of distribution requirements. An additional third are typically within a major. A major can range from anywhere like, I think 16, I believe is the highest number of credits that is required for a major at Dickinson. 10 is, I believe, the lowest. So somewhere between 10 and 16 of their credits would be within that core kind of major area. And then a mix of electives for the remaining 32 credits. And so some students will choose to do a minor or a certificate with part of those electives. Some students will decide to double major. Some students will decide to use those electives as an opportunity to really customize the education that they're getting and delve more deeply into a lot of areas that aren't necessarily their focus, but that could be connected to that focus some way. So that's the big picture. What does that mean for fall 2021 semester? 4 classes this fall. 1 will be their first year seminar. And so they'll be choosing, selecting, talking about classes for 3 more slots. Those classes do not have to be specific core requirements. And I think this is where really enlisting you as partners and helping your student understand this is hugely important. There are not general requirements that every student has to take at Dickinson. You don't have to take a, English 101 or a math, 101. But we do have these general distribution requirement categories. So we typically will encourage students to think more broadly about that first semester and to explore with focus. And we'll talk a bit more about that later too. But 4 classes for this semester, and hopefully there are only a handful of students who have not yet selected their first year seminar. But if you happen to be a parent of someone who is not able to tell you what first year seminar they're in, please have them contact me and we'll get that set. Actually, contact Laura. That would be amazing. She's managing that. So that's a bit about how many courses, the new student advising process, what we are all here to really learn more about. As I mentioned before, that's going to be July 10th through 16th, and it is by appointment. Every single session that we're going to hold, so all, probably 700, maybe including transfer students, much higher than that, 700 advising sessions are going to be one-on-one, and they will all be done by appointment. They all ideally will be conducted via Zoom. In some cases, that's not a possibility, and we do them over the phone. Or for some students that, for example, are completely out of range for that advising time, we have the ability to handle a couple of exceptions, if they're leaving before that July 10th deadline or something along those lines. This morning, all students received an email from New Student Advising with information about how to sign up for their New Student Advising appointment. There in that email is also a lot of other really great info about helping them prepare for their advising session and for course request. The New Student Advising web pages outline the process in 4 steps, which I actually am going to copy that over. If you just give me one moment, I'm going to copy that over in the chat if any of you are interested in doing a little bit of multitasking and want to kind of check it out. But what we've done is we've provided, there we go. We've provided step-by-step directions in terms of how to prepare. And we think a lot of really helpful things like a blank course scheduling worksheet and a checklist. So there's a lot of really, really deep and rich information in there that we've tried to organize in, we hope, very accessible ways. So thank you, Laura. So new student advising will be happening July 10th through 16th. And that is absolutely key. A student must have a session with a member of our new student advising team in order to select courses. They will receive an alternate pen, which will be a 6-digit code that will be given to them at the end of their new student advising session. It will also be emailed to them, and a message that automatically is generated when our advisors code that they've spoken with the student and confirm that they have completed their advising call. That email will also provide some really helpful information, quick reminders about when to submit course requests, when schedule adjustment opens up, and things of that sort. So encouraging your student to check their Dickinson email for the message that came from new student advising this morning, and then to go ahead and get an appointment scheduled. There are hundreds to choose from, and then prepare really well for this advising experience. It's going to be really huge to helping them launch smoothly. Course request will begin on July 12th and run until the 26th. It is not first come, first serve, but it will be the time when your student, after reflecting in their advising call, probably after some really, hopefully very helpful conversations with you, they will go into the Banner self-service system and they will put in the unique codes for each of the classes that they want to take. And then that 6-digit alternate pen that I mentioned a moment ago, they'll put those in and they are ready to go. That's course request. On August 11th, schedule adjustment opens up. And so this is where students can take a look at their schedules. If there are any courses that maybe were at capacity and they were not able to originally get, or maybe they completely changed their mind about what they want to major in between July and August. This is where the schedule adjustment really is pretty key here. And the advising staff are still available and accessible anytime a student has questions during that period. That period will go from August 11th through the start of the semester. And then really the only other time that I will kind of promo right now is the add drop period, which is the entire first semester, the entire first week of classes. And that's where if a student goes to class and just really feels like it's not the right fit for them and wants to switch courses, they're allowed to do that throughout that entire first week. For those who are taking language courses, that is extended a bit more. And language faculty are observing very closely, especially within that first week or two, to make sure that students are at the appropriate level. They all have hopefully taken placement exams at this point. If they have not yet taken their placement exams, encourage them to do that prior to their advising call, please, so that we have all the information that is needed right up front. So yeah, as I said, the faculty within the language departments will be working really closely with students for really that first couple weeks to make sure they're at the appropriate level, to both challenge them, but also not be overwhelming. The really only other thing I'd like to add in terms of the new student advising experience, you probably already are aware of this, or your students may be aware of this, but as almost every other area has been impacted, the College Board's reporting for AP scores has been delayed. And so typically Dickinson would already have received AP scores, and your student would already have received AP scores from the spring settings. But in both cases, they are delayed. And so we will, your student and we, if they ordered for the scores to be sent to us, will get those at the end of course request and or in mid-August. And so depending on what classes your student may have taken AP exams for, we may need to devise a couple of various options. You know, if I got an AP score of a 4 or 5, these are the courses that I'll select. If I got an AP score of less than that, you know, I'll select these specific courses. So that could be really important for placement, and just please encourage your students. Don't worry about it. There is a plan in place. All of the departments that require or accept AP classes for placement or credit are aware of this and are working with students on a case-by-case basis when this does occur. Again, I can talk more about that, even just individually, if anyone has questions about that. Okay, so I know that was a lot. Told you were going to get the inside scoop there. Could we please, next slide, I just want to talk just a little bit about what that advising session is going to look like. So typically students find themselves in one of three groups, either very, very focused. Maybe they've known since they were 8 years old what they wanted to do, and know exactly, that one or two areas of academic interest that they're going to be pursuing. Some students are maybe have 2 to 4 options that they're still considering. And then some students are completely wide open and ready for exploration. And all three of those categories, as I mentioned before, are absolutely perfect for where they need to be from an advising perspective. And what we will do as advisors is help maximize their options. So our strategy is to help students keep as many options on the table for themselves as they want for as long as they want. And so your student will find during their advising session, faculty advisors asking questions that will typically, I would say, kind of sway towards the majors that may be the most hierarchical, because those might be majors that are a little bit more challenging to jump into later, while still allowing for exploration within some of the other classes that they're taking that semester. So please just rest assured, no matter what category your student is in, we've got them. We're excited to work with them in this capacity. I just also want to say a bit about our faculty advisors. All of our academic advisors that your students are going to be working with are either faculty, or there will be some of our staff that are assisting with this process. For new student advising, the faculty advisors that work with them absolutely know that advising is teaching, and what they're teaching is the logic of Dickinson's curriculum, right? How these particular distribution requirements matter, and how they might connect those to other things that they're studying or might want to even consider. So advisors are teachers, and they're teaching your student how to really maximize the options that they have academically during their time at Dickinson. So I'm going to just stop there for a moment, and I'd like to, at this point, give our panelists, other panelists, a bit of an opportunity to talk about their areas of wisdom that they can share here. So first, would like to jump over Debbie, Laura, whoever wants to jump in first. Both of you have an extensive background in career development and also in advising. And at Dickinson, pre-professional advising is important. Obviously, Debbie and Laura are not representing all pre-professional advisors or advising processes at Dickinson, but I want them to, if possible, share a little bit about what that looks like from each of their areas. And then if there are other things that you'd like to kind of promo, please feel free to jump in there. Laura, do you want to start?
Sure. So from a pre-law perspective, from an advising perspective for pre-law, first and foremost, I want your students to explore. I want them to find what excites them. I want them to engage in various subject matters or disciplines that are of interest to them. As you may or may not be aware, in order to be qualified to go to law school, you simply need a bachelor's degree. So, and then certainly more credentials to get into various schools, but it doesn't matter what your major is. It doesn't matter what courses you've taken, so on and so forth. So I think a lot of times students enter Dickinson thinking, well, I want to go to law school, so I guess I need to major in political science. And while that's a perfectly fine choice, it doesn't have to be their choice. So I really want your students to explore their academic interests. I've worked with several successful law school candidates who have majored in music or religion or a life science, or certainly English and philosophy. Yeah, I really do want your students to explore. Build relationships with faculty, it's super important. Challenge themselves to be successful academically, because certainly that GPA and that transcript is going to be important. But from a pre-law programming perspective, I'm available to your students as much or as little as they might want my advice and or expertise. I also offer various workshops and information sessions throughout every semester, everything from the basics as to how do I apply to law school to alumni delivered content on legal specialty areas and sort of niche law practices and everything in between. So, so if I had one word of advice for them, or one particular thing to encourage them to do as they approach their advising call in mid-July, that's to really kind of think outside the box and think about what they're going to enjoy, you know, exploring and learning about. And then we can just kind of move on from there.
Hi, everybody. So I'm Debbie Swarner, the PreHealth Professions Advisor. For the PreHealth program, I'm going to echo some of the same points that Laura did for pre-law, but I'm also going to vary those points a lot for students who wish to enter the PreHealth program, because it's definitely a more structured program at Dickinson. But as we think about getting started for first-year students who want to join the PreHealth program and who plan on a PreHealth profession after graduation, exploring is really the first place to begin. And so in the first year new student conversations in the next few weeks, the advisors generally have been coached about how to guide students. So whoever your student meets with for the new student advising will be able to help them to get started at Dickinson and think about the courses, which I'll talk a little bit more about in a minute. But overall, in getting started, really exploration is the key. Even if you think you know what field you want to go into, exploring and confirming that that is the right field for you is important, or exploring and finding that you really are meant for another field might be the best route for you. So part of the support that students gain at Dickinson is really the opportunity to have those conversations with the faculty, PreHealth advisor, or myself, and to just open the doors and confirm what field is the right one for you within healthcare, or perhaps it's not within healthcare at all. Perhaps as you learn about other opportunities at Dickinson, there will be a place like law or another field, perhaps that maybe the data science that really excites you more. But in these conversations, we'll be able to find what is the best way to support your student at the time at Dickinson, but it starts with the new student advising. And so your students hopefully will enjoy the conversations that they have with advisors in the next few weeks. There are some specific classes that students at Dickinson should take if they are planning to enter the health professions for whatever their profession that they should choose for themselves throughout the time at Dickinson. And getting started with perhaps biology or chemistry, and then something fun that they want to begin to explore. Those are important courses to talk about with the advisor that they speak with. They don't need to necessarily do both of the sciences, depending on the discussion and how they feel their preparation is. But as I mentioned earlier, PreHealth is a little bit more structured. And we'll really get into the structure within information sessions for first year students who wish to become a part of the PreHealth program. We'll be sending out a message soon about an upcoming workshop that students can choose to attend prior to orientation so that they can begin to learn more about the PreHealth program and meet our faculty chair and have the opportunity to work with both the faculty chair for the PreHealth program and also myself on becoming integrated into the program. Also, we'll talk more about the courses at that point. We'll talk more about the careers. Then we also have first year group advising to help students truly integrate to Dickinson into the PreHealth program. We started that a number of years ago with faculty support, and it's been a great benefit to the students who are learning what the PreHealth program is about, who are beginning to explore their career options and to build on their initial steps at that time. As a part of that, we do have a panel of alums who speaks with students and really has the opportunity to talk about their various career paths, how they may have come into Dickinson with one idea and left with another, or confirmed through their time at Dickinson that they wanted to pursue a particular major, went through that, ended up in the career. And were able to accomplish professionally what their original goal was outside of Dickinson. So meeting alumni is definitely part of the program. We also have, after students get started, a Wednesday speaker series to integrate them with the alumni as well. So lots of chances throughout the time at Dickinson to explore and confirm interests. But basically for new student advising, the important thing to begin to explore is just major ideas and interesting topics for you. And also what are the courses that your student would take for the first semester at Dickinson. So I'm happy to answer questions throughout the time. And certainly please refer your students to me, but they will be receiving an email later in the summer to begin connections with the PreHealth program. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura and Debbie. We have so many good questions that are coming in. So I want to say, please know that as you're listening to this presentation, if you do have questions, send them over. We're gonna make sure that they're answered. They may not necessarily be answered live or even during the chat right now, but lots of great questions coming in, and I can literally feel the love and excitement that you have for your students really coming through strong here. So next, I'd love to hear a little bit from Professor Kirsch, Sarah Kirsch. So you have taught many first-year seminars and advised dozens, maybe hundreds at this point of students. From an advisor's perspective, what does this new student advising experience look and feel like? And then as you're kind of thinking about that, any recommendations that you have, again, from an advisor's perspective about how we can help students maximize that opportunity to really begin to explore options and to facilitate that new student advising experience? So kind of two parts.
Yeah, thanks, Tara. I think before I talk a little bit about the advisor-advisee relationship, I want to just sort of make a blanket statement for a lot of the folks in the chat who are worried about specifics of courses. And I just want to say that don't worry, we will talk through all of that when we do our summer advising calls. So oftentimes students get their first year seminar, a professor will call them over the summer to do summer advising. I've done that many times in the past with Tara. Sometimes for whatever reason, the first year seminar professor just isn't available. And so someone else like me will give a call and do that advising to set you up with the courses for the fall. So those specifics, all of these things that Laura have talked about with pre-law, that Debbie has talked about with pre-health, as well as the 3 categories of students that Tara had on her slide, we know and expect all of them. So we have conversations to make sure that we cover all of that. I wanted to talk just a little bit about what the new student advisor relationship is like. And I think that sometimes lots of students have had guidance counselors in high school that maybe just check off the boxes. You know, you need a science, you need a math, you need an English, you need, you know, a language. And this is really different than that. I think sometimes of myself as the best version of a Netflix algorithm for Dickinson, which is to say that if a student tells me, I'm really interested in X, I can say, great, then you should take Y. You should explore Z. We should get you involved in these 3 other things over here. So just know that we're taking into account, I had never seen Tara's slide about authentic interests, but we're taking into account that personality, those values, those skills, those priorities through a conversation, through a relationship that we build. My best advice to parents, and someone asked in the chat about what if you have a student who's not really great at thinking outside the box? Don't worry about it. We'll teach them how to. All I need is for students to show up and be able to tell me a little bit about what they're interested in, what they're curious about, and be ready to have a conversation. This won't be a sort of one-word answer back and forth. This is I want to get to know you. What are you doing this summer? What have you done in high school? What are you passionate about? So I think that answers both of the questions that Tara asked me to address, and hopefully checks off some of the boxes from the chat. that are coming through. So I'll pause there and I'll let you hear from parents who have experienced this themselves.
Thank you very much, Professor Kirsch. Yeah, it's always, before COVID, we were in a large room and lots of conversations between advisors and on the phone with the advisees. And it was just this amazingly warm feel to it. And now it's kind of happening all over the place from people's homes. Okay, so this is where you really need to make sure you're listening up, right? So parent to parent. Okay, your daughter Rachel is nearing the time of her time at Dickinson and has really done exceptionally well. Could you tell us a bit about what her experience at Dickinson has been like, broadly speaking, kind of more like what has she chosen to do and why from your perspective? And then maybe a little bit of rewinding to summer 2018 when she was just preparing for this new student advising session. You know, where was she at in terms of what she wanted to, how she wanted to approach the college experience, and even her first semester. Does that make sense? Kind of I guess a three-pronged question there.
So while you're asking the question, you're negotiating parts. So I'm going to go first. She's going to go second. So yeah. So you know, we are frankly amazed at Rachel's experience at Dickinson. You know, back 3 years ago when she was getting ready for her summer advising, you know, we had no vision of what her experience was really going to end up being. So I'd say, you know, Rachel's approach from the time she was accepted was, I'm going to put myself out there. I'm going to take advantage of everything the school has to offer. I want to put even before she went up, she made sure she went to the accepted student events. And I know there's some of those going on this summer virtually, and met other students. And everything down to, you know, we never really saw her as being in a sorority. And she said, you know what, I'm going to go to the meeting about Rush and see if I like it. And she continued on. And ever since that moment, that's been her approach, including academic advising. You know, so we'll tie it back to this subject, right?
That's my area.
I can't tie it back. Lori will tie it back in a minute. But Rachel's really put herself out there, and that has paid off to her and brought opportunities for her as well. And we've watched her grow. So I let Lori cover academic advising.
Okay. What I was going to say is along those lines. Yeah, Rachel did make this decision to really go after things in college, and she has done incredibly well. Part of that was her really fabulous experience with academic advising. She was a kid who was always interested in science. She thought maybe healthcare, wasn't 100% sure. What she did the way she handled it is when she had her first meeting, as far as her freshman advising went, they suggested that she kind of get on that science track, getting in that early lab, maybe taking another science, kind of exploring, and then along with taking some other requirements. So she did take a lot of her science requirements a little bit earlier because she found as she went along that this was definitely her area of interest. My biggest recommendation and encouragement, though, is that your student really has to take a lot of responsibility for this in terms of wanting to get there and wanting to make that effort with the advisors. They're fabulous. The advisors are fabulous. But she continued, I mean, to this day, once she chose her major, she got a different advisor in her major, but she has seen that advisor every single semester before classes began to help her select her classes, to kind of guide her through the right things. And they've also gotten to know her, and opportunities have come through that. It was her advisor that recommended her to a newer professor about helping out in her class and about doing research. So those things all came through the advising. Rachel is extremely organized and would always come in with, you know, I could take these classes or I could take these classes, and they would discuss that. So the more information that, you know, your student can help with, that the more feedback that they can get, which was really great. And, you know, just to assure parents of one thing, the advising definitely does work. Rachel is now, because she did decide to front load, I would say, a lot of her requirements for science, which isn't necessarily, you know, the right option for everybody, but for her it was. She's actually eligible to graduate a semester early if she wanted to, which is, you know, a pretty big accomplishment. So
yeah, the only thing I would add is you have the academic advising, you have representatives here of what I call the career center. That's not the long name.
Let them work
encourage them to take advantage of those things. It's really benefited Rachel, and the professors and the faculty really are interested in the students. I know it's one thing to hear that from people who are employed by the college, but that's really been our experience.
Yeah.
So we'll turn it back to you.
Thank you all very much for that. And I want to say just a little bit of assurance. If you have a student that maybe isn't super organized and maybe by nature wouldn't necessarily be, I guess, kind of initiating contact in the way that they just talked about, that's a huge place where your help could be really, really valuable. Encouraging them to kind of think through, maybe even, I mean, I've done some role play with students of, okay, you're going to walk in to talk to your advisor and like, look around their office. There are probably something about their office that you could comment on that's then a connection point to kind of build off of, right? So again, it's confidence building, and we really want to stress self-advocacy. So please, self-advocacy, encourage your students to look back in their emails and to kind of help guide them along, because they'll be on campus this fall. It's amazing to be able to say that, right? But they'll be on campus this fall, Lord willing. And yeah, so I'm going to stop there. Sarah, did you have any things that you wanted to kind of cover? You want to do a little bit of Q&A? Thank you.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you so much. And thank you everybody for your thoughtful questions, and to all of our panelists. Thank you so much for your responses. I've been trying to keep track of the Q&A and of the chat. And as Tara had mentioned, we've received a lot of really great questions in here. A lot of them are really specific to your particular student and their particular interests. And I can assure you that we are jotting them down, and we're going to take some time to divvy them up and make sure that you've received a response. You know, probably not in this live session, but we will absolutely follow up with you. Tara, I didn't know, so I was trying to look over certain themes that we might be able to address, or if there's any additional clarification we could provide in certain areas. One question that came up a couple of times was, you know, does my student know their first year seminar? And at this point, they should have received that assignment. Another thing, Tara, I'm not sure if you wanted to comment on, is I've seen a couple of questions about placement exams. I know that there's a section on our website that I can even drop in the chat that has some additional information, you know, who should take them if they're coming in undecided. Should they take the chemistry placement exam? You know, is there any insight that you'd be able to share about that?
Yeah, no, great question. Because taking placement exams might not be necessarily the way that they're really excited to spend the rest of their afternoon, right? We encourage students, if they are considering even the remote possibility of studying a particular topic, take the placement exam. So even if they don't know if they'll continue with, you know, the French that they took in high school, take the placement exam. Even if they think that they might want to take Spanish or something along those lines, because it just keeps options open for them until, again, they decide for sure that they don't want to do it. Placement exams are that much more important this year because of the delay in AP scores being received. And so your student may, for example, be hoping that they scored a 4 or 5 on one of the math options for AP. That then would place them into certain math courses. But the placement exam information is going to be what the professors actually have at our ready until those scores are received. And so it it's important to take them. They don't need to take them if they're not ever going to take that particular subject area, but it is important to take those. There was a question about IB scores. Both AP and IB credits are taken by Dickinson. There is a webpage, Debbie, Laura, I'm not sure if one of you could share, but a webpage that gives equivalency. So if you got this score, this is what it's placement or credit for. And I would ask, if you asked a really specific question in the chat, as Sarah said, we're going to get back to you. It would be extremely helpful, though, if you could send another follow-up message that makes sure we know what your student's name is, because sometimes names might be different, and I'm going to be doing all kinds of hunting to try to figure that out. So if you ask a specific question about placement exam information or any information or anything like that, please just do a quick follow-up with the student's name.
Yeah, thank you so much. So I just put in there, at least I think it went through, parents@dickinson.edu is an email address that I monitor, and I'm able to then filter your questions out to the appropriate people to respond to you directly about anything that's on your mind as we're approaching, the summer advising or anything else. You can continue to keep an open communication with me throughout the summer. If you have a question for any of our panelists here today, or for Andrew and Lori, or anybody else on campus. And so with that, I just want to, I think that we're in a good place to close out. I want to thank all of our panelists here today. Thank you so much for your time and your thoughtful input. I know that I definitely have learned more about summer advising than I knew before. I appreciate your perspectives and all of the hard work that you put into preparing for this, and that you put into preparing for the conversations that you'll have with our students. And everybody who joined us today, thank you again for taking a break in the middle of your day to spend some time with us, to learn more about this. We know that you care deeply about your student and you want them to have a successful Dickinson experience. And the information that you've gathered here today will just help you to support them and, put your faith in them and know that they'll be able to tackle these conversations and everything that lies ahead for them. You'll get more information. I'll send a follow-up about everything that we discussed here, and I'll remind you to sign up for other sessions to join us throughout the summer, to learn more, to connect with other members on campus, to connect with other families and other incoming parents as well. But thank you all so much, and I wish you all a great afternoon.